Justin Ayala, and I'll be talking to you guys about prescription drug and illicit drug abuse and overdose, and that ongoing epidemic that we face today in America. I opened my statement with this quote, this statistic from the National Institute on Drug Abuse that says more than 72,000 Americans died from drug overdoses, including illicit drugs and prescription opioids in 2017. Once again, that was reported by the National Institute of Drug Abuse. So that was the reported number of deaths by overdose, and as you can see listed in the charts, it kind of gives you a gauge or a sense of how that's gradually increased over the years. Starting from 2002 on the left-hand side, going all the way up to 2017. So as you can see, overdoses and abuse of prescription drugs and just regular illicit drugs have been an ongoing epidemic that has continued to affect this country, specifically, like I said, specifically our country. Today is to inform you guys on this epidemic and what contributes to this ongoing epidemic and why that number that was recorded by the National Institute is steadily increasing. And that is, there are many factors that contribute to this epidemic, such as the glorifying of drug abuse within social media, mainstream TV, such as movies, also music, social media, those kind of things that we all have access to. Also, the careless practices of some prescribing physicians, specifically those that are new to the medical field. And then also people who suffer from mental illness. You hear this a lot, that people with mental illness that depend on prescription drugs and just drugs in general to sort of cope with whatever they're going through, whether that be anxiety, whether that be pain, whether that be depression. So let's see. One reason that I believe that this one factor that contributes to drug abuse is basically, like I said before, the glorification of mainstream media and social media and how they praise sort of using drugs, and this sort of stigma of you're cool if you use drugs, whether that be marijuana, alcohol, prescription drugs. In mainstream media, such as movies, they kind of praise doing that. And when audiences view that, they sort of take that in account, and they take that into consideration, and they sort of continue that stigma, which is it's popular if you're not popular if you're not doing it. And then also that alone can have an effect on especially younger audiences when they see that, especially going through school. Especially if all their friends are doing it, that can cause them to take on that and start to abuse drugs that can eventually lead to overdose. Let's see. Another thing is the careless practices of prescribing physicians. So with the medical field, especially if you're new to the medical field, you have the knowledge, but you lack the experience. So because you're new, you don't really know how to gauge a person and how they use drugs and the amount of drugs that they use as far as like prescriptions go. So if you're a new prescriber, it's kind of hard to manage what you're prescribing and how much of you're prescribing to a patient, especially if they're unfamiliar, because you're fairly new to the medical field. And I believe with this, this is considered careless to me, because if you're going to be in the medical field, it's very important that you get a good sense of your patients and what medications they're on, so that way it can kind of prevent them from abusing it and using it for the wrong reasons. And this carelessness can kind of cause harmful effects. It can start a codependence with people that they prescribe to. They can sort of abuse that power as far as abuse their knowledge that the doctors have, and they can kind of use it for other things, i.e. anxiety, depression, things like that. And if a lot of patients that have mental illnesses, they'll be prescribed certain medications to sort of cope with that, the symptoms of whatever they're dealing with. And it can, cause a codependence, and they can start to rely on those sorts of things. And if they are, if they don't get it, they can, experience withdrawal symptoms and things like that. Let's see. And my next point is, let's see, with going off of my previous point of people with mental illness. Like I said, when we talk about mental illness and how it's important that you go seek help, and a lot of times that help is you get medicated for whatever you're trying to treat. A lot of people take anxiety medications, depression medications. If you have chronic pain, they prescribe a lot of narcotics and pain medications. And that's when you're taking those medications, it's very important as the doctor that you sort of monitor that patient, especially if they're diagnosed with some sort of mental illness, for the reason of they can abuse it, whenever they get high off the feeling of those medications. And when you're not managing that, and when you're not keeping up with that, this can cause a dependence for them to those sort of medications. So, as you can see in the chart above, it shows this sort of like a reference of people who are with mental illness. You see on there, they show alcohol, they show drug, and they show them together. So as you can see, going right to left, the graph is increasing with each circumstance, and that shows people with mental illness and how they're dependent on either drugs or alcohol or even both. In conclusion, let's see. Like I said before, there are many factors that contribute to this epidemic, and this is why it's important that we speak about it, so that way this no longer becomes an ongoing epidemic, and that we prevent whenever we see things like celebrities, praising drugs use in rap music or movies or just in social media in general, it's important that we explain, especially to the younger audiences, that this is not okay. It can lead to other harmful things, and you just don't want to be a part of it. And you just make sure with people with mental illnesses, it's important that we sort of gauge what medication that they're taking, because they can lead to abuse. And let's see. And also with new physicians, their careless practices and not taking the time to spend time with their patients and understanding their situation a little bit better. That also is leading to potential abuse. I'll leave you guys with this final statement. More than 72,000 Americans die from overdoses, including illicit drugs and prescription opioids and narcotics annually in the United States.